We ready to get started?
Ready.
Sure.
Well, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today for session 11 of our Refocus and Rebuild webinar series focused on helping Virginia businesses reopen in a post-COVID-19 world. My name is Sandy Ratliff. I am with Virginia Community Capital. If you're not familiar with us, we are a community development financial institution in Virginia focusing on lending, investing, and community innovation services. We are excited and always happy to partner with the Virginia Small Business Development Center Network, Gen Ed, University of Virginia's College at Wise, and the Southwest Virginia Alliance for Manufacturing to present this weekly webinar series. This is a 13-week series. If you've missed the first 9, they are available online that you can go back and see at any time. And if you find value in it, please share that with other business associates that you think that could benefit from this. And if you notice in the reminder emails that you've been receiving from me about these sessions, we provided a link to access a variety of templates and guidebooks to help you in developing a resiliency plan for your business should another crisis or pandemic hit you. Now, before we get started and I turn it over to my co-host today, we want to keep this webinar flowing. We know everybody is very busy and we want to stay within our 1-hour goal. So we have muted everyone. However, we want to hear from you. So ask that if you have a question for our presenter, if you will post those in the Q&A section, we will address those at the end of the presentation. I will now turn it over to Courtney Connor Stringer. She is Director of Professional Development at the University of Virginia's at Wise, and she will introduce our speaker and moderate the session. Courtney, it's all yours.
Hello, happy Thursday, everyone. I'm glad to have you with us. As Sandy said, my name is Courtney Stringer, and I work for the Office of Economic Development Engagement for UVA Wise. I'm the Director of Business and Community Development, a new title, so it's hard to say. We do open enrollment and customized training for businesses. So if there are certain programs that your business needs, please reach out to us. We would be happy to customize a program for you or get you in our open enrollment classes. And I would like to turn it over to Troy. We are so happy to have him with us today. Troy Bravenboer is the president and founder of Brave Freight and RA Max Logistics. His companies are a 1-2 punch as a motor carrier and freight broker handling FTL and LTL freight nationally, with an extensive background in direct sales and a newfound passion for data-driven tech. His unconventional approach to this legacy industry has allowed him to offer a stimulus guarantee to truck drivers during the height of the pandemic while scaling debt-free companies that will cap out 2020 as record years. Congratulations on your success, Troy, and welcome.
Thanks. It's so funny. It's like, as you say, I just am overwhelmed by gratitude of, of just my, of everything that's happening in my life. I think that one of the huge misconceptions that people have of founders and CEOs is that they can be really Scrooge people sometime, or they're really, they're really just stern, uncaring people. And I actually found the opposite, is that the better the CEO is, the more that they love and they care about people, and the more that they have an affinity for gratitude. So I've got a few slides that I've presented here, and I'm really looking to engage with, the participants of this webinar. And I'll get some contact information to Miss Courtney as well. So if anybody is watching this on replay and wants to, reach out to me, you're welcome to do so, whether it's on social media or send me an email. So we actually partner with, I don't know if we partner is the right word, but we utilize some space at the Oxbow Center, which I believe is part of UVA Wise, and the school there. And it's been an incredible blessing to our life and our business. I'll tell you a quick history about me and my businesses, and then we'll hop right into it. So I got into direct sales. We'll start with this. Maybe let me go ahead and share my, presentation screen, and I apologize ahead of time I'm not really a PowerPoint guy, but we'll get this thing working here. Let me do that. And then let me go to Zoom and do this screen share here. All right, just confirm with me that that looks all right for you guys.
We can see it. You might want to put it in presentation mode, but other than that, we can see it.
I do want to do that. How do I do that? There we go. I think like that, right?
We just lost you.
Oh my goodness. One of my pet peeves is not having stuff like this prepared. Use slideshow mode, but you lost me regardless. So let's go ahead and get this going back again. How about that?
We've made contact.
Perfect.
All right, Houston, we've landed. So risk management and evaluation. Hopefully this works. You can see I already prepared for it. But really in risk management, that's kind of how you feel about it is you could never plan for a black swan event like what we've just experienced this year. So a lot of what you're doing is you're premeditating potential problems that can happen and preparing them. So just real quick to, should you listen to me? And I guess you could always learn what not to do. You could ask some of my friends and my spouse that. I've had thousands of failures, but obviously with failures comes success. So far, we've seen 103% year-over-year growth from 2020 to 2019. Our Q3 of 2020 is 80.3% of our entire 2019 revenue. And currently already, our October is 75% of our entire month of September, and we're only halfway through the month. So I just wanted to, I guess validate a little bit, about where I come from and my background so you guys can, just understand, we're still a small company. We'll only cap out this year probably at about 4.5 million or so. So in the grand world of businesses, it's a very small business. But now, can you guys still see me on camera? Is that right, Miss Sandy?
I can see you on camera, but we don't see your slides.
Perfect, no problem. I don't have tons of information on the slide, so I'd rather talk to people's faces anyway. So, I have a background in sales, and really am like very unsuspecting in business. I work out of a location here in Tampa. I don't know if you guys can see. It's called Embark Collective, and it's owned by a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Vinnick. And Jeff Vinnick is the gentleman who also owns the Tampa Bay Lightning, who just won the Stanley Cup, and our city's really excited about that. They actually were able to have the Stanley Cup come in here last week, and I got to have pictures with the Stanley Cup, which was awesome. 15-year-old me never would have believed that. And I started this trucking company as kind of like a solution to a need that I had in my life. I was in ministry at the time, and I really wanted to be able to have something that I could travel with that also allowed me to be able to generate an income. So right from day one, it was about building a business that allowed key flexibility. And not just flexibility for me, but as we continue to scale the company, I wanted to allow flexibility for myself and for my agents. And this really ties in a lot with risk management, and I'll kind of weave it in here. But I wanted to make sure that we were never debt laden. So I was able to start the company debt free, and we were able to start the company, with some money that I had from direct sales. A lot of people think that you need to raise a ton of money and have investors, and you don't necessarily need to be able to do that. While I'm not against it, I think it's there's ways to be able to go around it. And the way that we built our structure and our pay structure that I think is really dynamic and different for our industry, but it allowed me, and as a business owner, if you're a business owner and you're watching this, or if you're a leader in the company, you just kind of apply it for where you're at. But it allowed me, our structure, which I'll cover right now, it allowed me to be in a position where we were never expense negative. What do I mean by that? Is that our overhead was never going to be in abundance of what our income was. So there's this saying that if your outgo exceeds your income, then your upkeep will be your downfall. So right from day one, back in 2013, when I started building this business, we built this business with no office, with no major software overhead, and I know that's not possible for every single business, but I would challenge you to look at your business and ask yourself how you might potentially be able to do that. We paid all of our agents as independent contractors. We let them all work remotely and make their own schedules. and we paid them a commission of the revenue that they generated. So we're a trucking company. Primarily, we focus on what's called over-the-road dispatch. So we have truck drivers who own their own vehicles, and then they lease onto my company. And then my company finds all of their loads for them, but we also manage all of the back office for them. We also manage all of their paperwork, all of their tax services, all of their expenses, all of their money management, the whole 9 yards. And we found a way right in the beginning to pay our team based off of a percentage of the revenue that they generated. And if you're in maybe a production industry, they call that piecework. I have another friend of mine who owns a couple companies, and one of the companies he owns is called Car Pool Tables. You can go to his website, carpooltables.com, and he makes pool tables that look like cars. He's the only licensed Chevy and Ford dealer in what he does. He has a Mario Andretti custom pool table set. He has the second most expensive item in Costco, and just really great businesses. He also has a hotel furniture business, and he also has a property management company and a construction consulting company. And that's also an approach that he has taken with his business, and he's one of my mentors that I've learned from, is he's found a way to pay his employees piecework. And what that allows people to be able to do is that when you, as an owner of a company, are paying people, and feel free to like ask questions if you want, or write them down about like, how can this apply to my work? Because I'd love to be able to brainstorm with you and hot seat your business if you feel like this just absolutely couldn't work. I guarantee you there's a way to be able to make it work. We even pay our administrators percentages of revenue. But what that allows to have happen is it increases the quality of work, and it also increases the efficiency. So when our dispatchers are paid a percentage of the gross revenue that they generate, I'm never in a position where I'm required to pay people on revenue that hasn't come in the company. And that's obviously allowed us to be able to stay flexible during the time of COVID, because I never had huge salary overheads where we were committed as a company to pay out all of this money of revenue that wasn't coming in. Right. So that's one thing that I would say in any business model is focus on how you can pay commission or piecework on all of the work that comes in. Our administrators pay. You say, well, how do you pay an administrator a commission? Well, our administrator, her work directly, and now John, we hired another guy actually out of that Virginia office there in St. Paul. His work and their work as administrators is directly related to the amount of their workload is directly related to the amount of work that we produce. So because of that, we were able to tie their income to production. And it also puts us in a place that as our company scales, we're also able to know that we're going to be able to pay people more as they stay faithful in the positions that they do. So that allowed us to be able to scale a company. In 2013, we did $180,000 in revenue. And then last year, I think we did 2.5 or 2.6. And this year already we're at like 3.4 or 3.5. And we've been able to do it totally debt free. So that's a little bit about my company and about where our history is and a little bit about our revenue. If anybody has any questions, is there any questions that have popped up so far at all, Miss Sandy? Or any questions from you or the
None so far.
Okay, cool. Anything from you or from Miss Courtney?
No, I'm just great taking it all in.
All right, cool. So we'll go ahead and let me hop back into this presentation right here. So presenter view. Okay. All right, so that's a little bit about our company. So I'm going to talk right now real quick about winning as a mindset. And, you know, I feel like now in 2020 that this is far more of an applicable or far more of a widely accepted topic than what it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago. I feel like, you know, just the whole, I've been an entrepreneur now, and I dropped out of college when I was 18 years old, and I'm 34 right now. So whatever that is, not too long, 16 years or whatever. But I know that even in like the early 2000s, when I was just getting in entrepreneurship, the whole feeling of like PMA, right? Positive mental attitude, the Vincent Norman Peale, the Think and Grow Rich, this like personal growth mindset. It was kind of like a lot of people were like, yeah, whatever, that's cool. Just tell me the nuts and bolts, right? Tell me how to actually do, which I do think that the practicalities of building business is very important, and we can cover that in a second. But what's more important than that is a winning mindset. So before a crisis comes, you need to decide who you are. Some of the quotes I put in the bottom here, Joe Fraser says that champions aren't made in the ring, they're merely recognized there. And these pandemics, and when situations like this, black swan events happen, when the World Trade Center happened, people think that these are like once in a lifetime events, but here we are, 15, 20 years later, we've had world shaking, nation shaking events happen. And the likelihood is that something like this is likely to happen again within the next 10 to 20 years. And when these situations happen, they should not force people to change. People should be in a position to be prepared for these events to be able to happen. So as I talk to you about where we are, when our company experienced COVID, nothing changed about our business. Our business was already set up to work remotely. And what happened in 2017 and 2018 and 2019, when people will tell me like, hey, can I fax you something? I'd be like, I don't have a fax where I am. They're like, oh, where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm in the year 2019. We don't have faxes here. Like and I joke around with it. I know there are some security benefits of having faxes and utilizing faxes, but for the by and large, there are way better ways to be able to communicate. And where back in the, just even 2 or 3 years ago, people would have call and be like, hey, can I speak to so-and-so? And I'd be like, yeah, here's a number. And they'd be like, oh, can you forward me? I'd be like, no, we don't have a traditional office. We all work remotely. And people would be weird about it. I remember dealing with like banks and funders in the beginning. We, even though we're debt free, we utilize factoring services for invoice factoring, just because our terms are net 30 with our customers. And people had this issue of like, well, where's your location? Where's your home office? And I had to sit and explain to them like, hey, all of our agents work remotely. But it's because of that it allowed us to be able to stay agile in the market and in the current conditions. And again, I'm not saying that everybody can be in that position depending on what your business is, but I would guarantee that there's other areas within your business that you could be prepared to be more of a remote lifestyle than and obviously now it because of the pandemic really forced people to be able to do that. But it's by the time the next crisis comes or the next event happens, it's too late to prepare, right? So preparation comes now. So this idea of winning as a mindset has really been pushed off for the last several years, but over the last 10, 15 years, 5, 10 years, it's become like socially acceptable in the entrepreneur world to really focus on these things. People now talk about self-care, they talk about mental health, and these elements that, a couple of points that I'm going to talk about right here, to me, are by far and above a more important foundation for you and I to have as entrepreneurs than a lot of tactical skills and practical skills, because practical skills, they come and go, they age out. There's term lives to these elements, but having a winning mindset and our mentality as an entrepreneur, these are foundational truths that have been the case for the last 1,000 years and will be the case if the world still is around in 1,000 years from now. So a winning mindset, we have winners and not winners. Some people would call not winners participants or losers, but I would never call anybody a loser. They're just not winners. So some key elements is like, hey, this idea of can I do this versus how can I do this? No one could survive this versus there is a way. And then I hope I win versus I'm going to win, no doubt. Our minds are incredible in the fact that they seek answers. What do I mean by that? Is that when you present a question to your mind will seek the answer to that question. When you ask yourself the question, can I do this? Its easiest response might be no, and it's found its solution. However, when you change your mindset to then say, how can I do this? Your mind doesn't come in this Boolean yes or no response. It now begins to search out ways of how can this happen. So one of the other startup companies that's in here is a company called Wanderseat. And I don't know if anybody has heard of Hotel Tonight. Usually I would have people wave and give me thumbs up, but we don't have that right now with everybody. So just go ahead and pretend to wave to me if you've heard of hoteltonight.com. If you haven't, give me a thumbs down to the camera, have some fun where you're at. Hotel Tonight basically fills hotel capacity, last minute hotel capacity at like their bare minimum rate. So you might want to go book a hotel for a week or 2 weeks from now. Hotels are going to sell it to you at their regular or their normal rate, but a hotel, you guys have a really nice hotel right in St. Paul, and I forget the name of it. I want to say it's Western Front, but I could be forgetting it. Is that right, Miss Sandy? Western
You're
Front,
right.
is that the name?
That's right.
Okay. Super cool hotel. I really like that. I've stayed in it a few times now. Super pretty hotel. So, but I guarantee you, if they have vacancy tonight, there's a break-even point where it's like, hey, they'd rather get 50, 60, 70 bucks a night and just have somebody in the room and generate the revenue than have the room totally empty, right? Because why? Because they don't have to hire more or less cleaning staff because you're in there. They don't have to hire more. They have these fixed costs that they already have there. Maybe they have to do a new, maybe they have to, replace the sheets and do a little bit of laundry, but they have bare minimum costs. So what Hotel Tonight is, it was an app that basically says, hey, if you're booking a hotel tonight, a last minute reservation, hotels have a preloaded bottom dollar that they're willing to get rid of the hotel for. So Logan, he did that with a company called Wanderseat, and they're building it for airlines. So airplanes very similar, right? Like they have a certain amount of capacity, and at a certain point, if the capacity is not filled, it's better to take any money and put butts in the seat than it is to not have any money. So their business model is when you're already terminal style. So it's really good for like single young people without kids or people with very flexible schedules. You're already terminal side. Maybe you just got off a plane and you're like, man, you know what? I'm back in Tri-Cities. I don't really need to stay in Tri-Cities. I could go really anywhere in the country or anywhere else in the world. Let me see what airlines are just offloading seats and I could hop on my next flight. So he had to pivot and totally change his business model with COVID. And I asked him the other day is, hey man, how are you going to monetize your market right now? And he's like, you know what? I just had a dream last night because I was asking myself that question. And it just goes to show that your brain has this amazing way of finding solutions to the questions that you ask it. So if you don't like the answers that you're getting, change the question. I'm going to say that again. If you don't like the answers that you're getting, change the question. Instead of asking yourself, is this possible? Start asking yourself, how is this possible? Charles Swindoll has a great quote, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react what happens to you. It's this type of mindset that if you can really start to be cautious about this, and for me, this comes in with brainwashing. Like I realized I needed to be brainwashed. The world is, by and large, okay, so there's the second law of thermodynamics, okay? So for any of you guys who love science, again, I wish I could see a hand wave or a thumbs up. I don't know if you guys have that ability in the chat feature or not, but if you do, go ahead and do it. But the second law of thermodynamics says that things will always tend to disarray unless purposefully kept in order, right? For those of you that have a home, your house will tend to be messy unless you purposefully clean it, right? The dishes will tend to pile up unless you purposefully take time to clean them. Your kids will, by default will get dirty and stinky unless you take them for a bath. And it's the same way within our businesses. And it's really the same way with our minds. Our minds will always tend to gravitate towards the negative, towards pessimism. Society will continue to tend that way unless we purposefully keep our mind in a victorious mindset. So understanding that you're destined to win, that there is a way to win, and that if anybody is going to win, that it's going to be you, that it's going to be may be, when you can switch your mindset to think that way, now everything becomes about finding solutions and figuring out a way to make things happen. So again, any questions pop up yet? Anybody have any questions that they want to chime in at this point?
I don't see anything major. I think just keep going.
Okay, great. We'll keep going. Okay, so now I'm gonna hop into something that's practical that we can do, that you can do. Is that something that I've done in my business that has totally changed my business over the last 10 months? So this is a practical tool. So I go on maybe the less tangible tool, which is the mindset piece. And a lot of people, like, if you're gonna brush over that, you might as well just close your laptop right now or close your computer right now, because what you're about to see right here, if you haven't done the first part and if your mindset is not at the place where it needs to be, you're never going to be able to do this part, because this part, what we're going to cover, ESAT, eliminate, streamline, automate, delegate, it's going to push you to the limit. It's going to push you beyond the limits of what you do right now. And if your mindset is not in a place of this is possible and I can do this and how can I do this, then this isn't going to work. Because when I talk about eliminating and looking at your business model and how to eliminate things, you're gonna be like, oh no, I can't do that. There's nothing I can do about that. It is the way that it is. Well, you're stuck. You're mentally stuck. Oh, I can't streamline anything. I can't automate anything. I can't delegate anything. You know, there might be some elements like that for sure, but I guarantee you that there is ways to be able to apply what I'm about to share with you. But it all comes down to the foundation of the mindset of willingness to grow, willingness to change, willingness to adapt, and believing, not just being willing, but believing that there is a way to actually do it. And that if anybody is going to find that way, it's going to be you. It's going to be me. I believe that I'm going to be at the top of my industry. I believe that I'm going to be a thought leader within my industry. I believe that I'm going to be somebody that's going to change the way that logistics is handled for who knows how long, right? But how? I don't know, but I know that it's going to happen. So I'm asking these questions. How do I do that? How do I do that? How do I do that? So this is really like the framework, I guess you could say, but the foundation is really that mindset and that attitude of like, if there's a will, there's a way. So do you ESAT? Is that like the electric slide? So ESAT, eliminate, streamline, automate, delegate. I actually just heard another term instead of streamline, which is simplify. So eliminate, simplify, automate, delegate. So this is a 4-step process that I do within departments of my business, right? So every company is made up of 6 parts: management, marketing, sales, production, finance, and human resources. So those are 6 areas of every company. I don't care what company that it is, you have those 6 areas. Everything else within your business fits within those 6 areas, right? So management, marketing, sales, production, finance, human resources. Like, those are the 6 areas of business. And within those 6 areas, there's processes and procedures within each side, inside of one of those. And maybe I'll take a second right now to say that part of the reason why we were able to do what we were able to do through COVID, and why we're having gangbuster weeks now outside of COVID, is because during COVID, we were already set up for remote because we wanted to be able to keep things flexible. We didn't want to be locked down to location. A lot of that was because my business didn't gain any value from having a physical location, and it was just an expense. And I wanted to eliminate any expense that was not revenue producing, right? So that's like talking about eliminate. I would ask you as a business owner is to look at your chart of accounts, to look at your monthly or your quarterly expenses, and go through all of your expenses and ask yourself which of these expenses don't directly contribute to generating revenue. Right? Because as a business owner, that's what we do. We generate revenue. That's the game plan. Which of these expenses don't directly relate to generating revenue? And then once you've identified what expenses don't directly relate to generating revenue, start to figure out, is there anything here that I can eliminate from my budget? Is there a way that I can reimagine how this could be done? I guarantee you there are so many business owners that felt like they needed to have a physical place to work, that all of a sudden, when they no longer could have a physical place to work, they still found a way to be able to make their business work. They found a way. They became creative to be able to do that. And I guarantee there was also people in the same business model that couldn't do it and they didn't find a way, right? But if you were maybe the one that didn't find a way, now's the time. You should be finding out who your main competitors are, what did they do during COVID, and how could you iterate on those processes, right? How could you adapt and adopt some of those processes? So eliminate, does this need to be done? Does this need to be paid for? And does this need to be done now? So looking at management, marketing, sales, productions, finance, human resources. Sorry guys, I turned my phone off. Can you guys still hear me? Did my headset click out?
You're good.
Okay, cool. Super sorry about that. Let me just throw this off. Airplane mode. So eliminate, does this need to be done? Does this need to be done now? And this is something that you can look from a 50,000 foot view of your own personal life and your own personal schedule. Or if maybe you're a leader within a department at a company watching this, and you can look at even the processes within your company. And maybe you'll find out, like I was a year ago, that I had terrible processes, that I just had people that I showed what to do and they did it, but there really wasn't a process around doing the things that we did within a business. Like, one of my friends who helps me with a lot of my data pieces, he's like, do you have a bus plan? I'm like, what's a bus plan? He's like, yeah, bro, if you got hit by a bus, do you have a plan? So let me ask you, do you have a bus plan? If you got hit by a bus, do you have a plan? If your main person got hit by a bus, do you have a plan? Obviously, it's a kind of a crazy way to be able to look at it, but it presents a really, really, really good question. I had another one of my friends who worked for a big logistics company in the area that we contracted with last year. And he basically said at a certain point, he realized that the owner of the company got really concerned when he started doing like more extreme things. He was doing like these Spartan races and this stuff. And then all of a sudden he's like, what's the deal? He's like, well, I just realized that you know how to do so many things that I don't know how to do. And if you weren't around to do them, I don't know how I would handle this. So that all comes down to having systems and processes around. And I know that sounds like basic business 101, but I think, we would actually be really surprised. Like if we actually took an inventory of our business and all the elements of our business, how much of our business happens just because people know how it happens, not because there's a manual in place or that there's a tool in place that records these processes. And what happens is when you really start to establish processes and you really start to think like, okay, to do this, I need to do 1, and then I need to do 2, and then I need to do 3, and then I need to do 4, and then I need to do 5. And once you start to establish that, you start to realize like, oh, actually I could do 1 and 4 at the same time, or I can do 3 and 5. And that's where we move over into streamlining, right? Can this be done in less steps? Is there an easier way to process this and utilize tech? So just to kind of wrap up urgent versus important, right? You've probably all seen the diagram for urgent and important. If you haven't, it's like one of those cross graphs, and it basically says urgent, not urgent, important, not important. And then you have your items that are urgent and important, and then you have your items that are not urgent and not important, and the variables between. And you need to ask yourself, like, as you're doing your daily tasks and even creating cultures within your company, like what's urgent versus what's important, and making sure that you're obviously focusing on the items that are the most important. And if they are urgent but they're not important, finding a way to be able to automate or delegate those, so that way you can spend your time focusing on the highest payoff activities. We'll cover that in a little bit, but that's what I would recommend. That's what I've done. That's really helped me. So streamlining processes is also a really big thing. Now, how does this help with risk management? Well, what happens is when you're able to do this, you're able to incentivize lean growth within your organization. We do with our company what other companies do with probably 2 and 3 times the amount of personnel that we have. We're able to do it in a streamlined and efficient way. So even though it might not directly seem like, well, how is that risk management? It absolutely is risk management, because most companies' #1 expense is going to be their payroll. So if you can now get more juice out of every orange that you squeeze, you now need less oranges to get the same amount of juice. And that's the type of perspective that's really going to help, prepare you for any type of pandemic. Whenever you're able to lower your overhead or your COGS, how can you do more with less? That's always the question, right? That's what's going to be able to increase your profit margins and your lean profitability. So figuring out how that happens, that's totally risk management. Not only that, but it allows you to save money, so that way in an event something does happen, that you're also fiscally prepared for that event too. So streamlining things, there's so many different ways that we can go with this, and I can give tons of different examples. One that's just coming to my mind right now is, this is stupid, I don't even know why I'm thinking about this, but you ever see the peanut butter and jelly jars that actually have the peanut butter and the jelly on the inside of them? I guarantee you some mom was like, man, maybe it was a dad, but man, I'm so sick of having 2 jars for peanut butter and jelly. I got lids and this, and I have to have different spoons and yada, yada, yada. This would be so much better if I just had if I just had okay, great. I just got a question. Thanks so much for that. I'll look at it in a second. So I wish I just had 1 jar. Oh, let me create 1 peanut butter and jelly jar, right? And bam, we have a peanut butter and jelly jar. And that's a little fickle in a description, but it's a great way to be able to say, hey, I've now taken a process. It's not just a peanut butter and a jelly jar. It's now taking off 1 lid instead of taking off 2 lids. It's now reapplying 1 lid instead of taking off 2 lids. It's now, so there's so many different pieces. It's now potentially using just 1 piece of silverware instead of 2 pieces of silverware, depending on how anal you are about your peanut butter and your jelly touching. But I guess if you're really particular about it, you're not going to buy peanut butter and jelly that share the same jar anyway. But the idea is that you can really start to condense these little movements. And people don't realize it, but man, there's so many little movements that take up time, and they really hinder workflow, which is what we'll cover next. And so let me go ahead and address this question that we've got here. I've just hit it on myself and I don't know how to get it. Hang on a second. So in doing the ESAD process, what are some of the things that you addressed? Okay, great. Good question. So let me just bullet point what the rest of this is, and then I'll definitely answer that question. So that's streamline, and we utilize tech like Airtable and Typeform, which will answer that question, and then automate. So this part, Zapier is incredible. There's other platforms like Zapier that's out there, but if your business can't benefit from Zapier, then I would say you really need to reevaluate your business model to be able to take advantage of tools like Zapier. So what does Zapier do? It's intimidating. I'm not going to lie to you. It was very intimidating for me. And for 2 years, it was something that I wanted to learn how to do, but I was too intimidated by it. And then I got accepted into this startup incubator here, and I got assigned a coach, and he is like the Mr. Amazo at Zapier. And basically what it does is it connects to unrelated apps. So let's just say you had a customer fill out a form and put in their name, their phone number, or their email address, right? But you had a CRM, a customer relationship manager, or maybe you just use a Google Sheet, but you wanted to put that information from the one place into the other place. Well, most people are just going to copy and paste it from the form and put it into the Google Sheet. Well, what Zapier does is it dynamically links the name to the name field, the phone number to the phone number field, the email to the email field, and it dynamically links it. And it's also able to procure other information or extrapolate other data that's not there. Like natively, there's a day and a time that event happens. Now, nobody has to mark the day and the time that it happens, but the reality is when the person hits submit on the button, it has a creation date and time. So now you might want to start to evaluate, or you have some data points where you can start to evaluate, man, how long does it take from the time my customer signs up on my website versus the time they get their product, or from the time they sign to the website to the time that they place their first order? And if it's a long period of time, or how many people even show up to my website versus how many people fill out the form, all of these are little data points that you guys can pull. And again, if anybody has any questions specifically, maybe for more production related, furniture related, whatever the case is, please ask me and let me know, because I don't want people to think like you have to be a tech company to use these tech pieces. My buddy who has the car pool tables business is, and I'm just looking at the clock, Miss Courtney, I know is going to holler me down in 7 minutes. So he has a car pool table business, And, whenever somebody orders a pool table, there's several gears that kind of get kicked into motion when somebody does that. Obviously, you have order creation. You now have parts that need to be taken out of inventory and applied. If it hits certain thresholds in inventory, then new elements need to be able to be ordered. And he's really told me, because he was, he's seen my business grow from, when I was working with him 3 years ago, when he started to mentor me, we were doing like $15,000 a week in volume, and now we're doing $180,000 a week in volume. So he's seen me grow from little to less little. We're still small in the business world, but I'm very grateful. I mean, it's still a sizable growth that we've had. And he's seen me do this. He's like, Troy, I think that the master is ready to become the student. And I really think there's a lot of parts in my very blue collar business that we would be able to automate, right? So, just looking at like, okay, when this happens, well, it automatically causes these things to happen. And when you have eliminated the non-essentials, and when you have simplified and streamlined the essentials and how they get done, it makes the automation process a whole lot easier, because you now know that you're dealing with elements you're dealing with the least amount of elements. I like what Steve Jobs said. Steve Jobs says that there's genius in simplicity. And if anybody saw the new iPhone 12 video for 2 days ago, they just released a new iPhone 12. Apple has probably killed it in being like the most simple, the most minimalistic. And if you think it's easy being simple and minimalistic, it's actually very hard, because everything you do has to be perfectly deliberate. Like every line has to be if you're only given 5 lines, you have to make sure every line is in exactly the right spot. But that comes because of eliminating the non-essentials, streamlining the essentials to be able to be done in the most efficient processes, and then automating processes that can be automated. Zapier is a great program there. And then finally is obviously delegating. Do I need to be the one doing this? Is there someone in my group that can do this, or can this be outsourced? And then some of the platforms I put there, Upwork, Fiverr, and using a VA, which is a virtual assistant. So again, funny, the same guy, Tony's his name, the carpool tables guy, with his other business, he's working with Pinellas County, and he's making senior living. Awesome stuff. But he needed to create models, which normally he would have to pay an architect $10,000-$15,000 to be able to do those models. And he's been seeing what I've been doing and how I've been using Upwork and Fiverr for these different things. So he's like, screw it, let me give it a shot. And he found somebody in Pakistan or wherever it is to be able to do this, the drawing. And he spent less than $500 to get just as good of a quality as what he would have spent $10,000 to be able to do elsewhere. And people would be like, well, what about America? Look, I am an American first business owner. I promise you I'm an American first business owner. But what that allows him to do as an entrepreneur is it allows him to do more projects. When you have somebody like that, like at least for me as an entrepreneur, and I want to bid you to come on this journey with me, like trucking's just the beginning. As we make more money in trucking, I'm not lining my coffers with this. I live in a very modest house right now that we rent. We're moving to Texas. I'm not buying an 8,000 square foot home. We're looking at buying a 2,200 square foot home on a 1/4 acre lot. Like, it's not going to be anything too crazy. What am I doing? We're building a software. I just hired a lead engineer or a lead developer to be able to build a new software. Why? Because I want to hire more developers. Why? Because I need to ESAD more. I need to eliminate, streamline, automate, delegate. I need to be able to serve more people. I want to create more opportunities. So that's why I want to see everybody here grow their business in a lean way, in an incredible way, because as you do that, 1, it'll prepare you for crisis, but 2, it'll also offer you to be able to explode your growth and have more impact. So I'm going to answer Miss Cindy's question. During the ESAD process, what are some things that you address? So for me, in my business model, we utilize a trucking company. This is crazy. So pre-pandemic, I'm in this place, awesome businesses like I told you about, Wander Seat, some other really, really cool cutting edge tech businesses. And I'm just like this dude with a trucking company, like such a blue collar industry, such a legacy industry. And I kind of felt like a black swan in the aspect of like, I'm not tech, right? Like I'm a legacy industry. And man, I'll tell you, when COVID hit, there was some of these great business ideas that already received funding that totally had to pivot, totally had to go belly up. Meanwhile, my company put on the jet thrusters, and we realized, and again, that's why I was like almost in tears when Courtney was just talking about how our company is, even though I wrote that stupid little bio, like it just reminiscing about how this company has been and what's happened, it really touches my heart, you know? So we had this really blue collar industry, legacy industry that's now hyper essential. We're thriving in this time. We're always going to be able to be here, but I needed to bring my industry to the 21st century. So what we did is we started utilizing Facebook ads. So again, like getting my hands dirty, learning how things can be done. We started utilizing Facebook ads. We now are getting 10, probably somewhere between 7-13 leads a day, which is not like a ton, but excuse me, when you already have like this whole recruiting process and everything else going on, taking that time to manually put people's information in 3 different places, it's overwhelming. So using Zapier to be able to have a Facebook form, to be able to capture basic information, name, phone number, email address, and then to be able to put that into our CRM. We use a CRM called Active Campaign. It allowed me to, excuse me, it allowed me to build an email funnel that automatically puts them in a funnel that leads to a series of emails that gets them to book a call with our recruiting team. We use another app called Calendly, which is a schedule booking, and I've linked it up to my recruiter schedule. So people with no effort, talk about eliminate, streamline, automate, delegate, we automated it. Like you eliminate what you can eliminate. If you can't eliminate it, streamline it. Once you've streamlined it, can you automate it? And automate as much of it as you can. If you can't automate it, then delegate it, right? So all these different elements, thank you, Miss Courtney. So all of these different elements I did within my business. So now we've automated that. Great. Automate. Well, we still have to be hands-on in the recruiting process, and we want to be hands-on because we're in the people business, and many of you want to be hands-on to you as well, within your businesses as well. But we've made sure that we've eliminated all of the non-qualifying prospects in our business at that point. And we've made sure that the people that we're getting on that call are the most qualified candidates. The problem is they weren't. We had to still streamline more. So then what we started to do was we started to activate our dispatchers and say, hey, as soon as a lead was booked, we hooked it up with a messaging app called Slack, which is what our company uses to be able to have intercompany communications. But we use Zapier with our Facebook ads to automatically send a message to an individual on Slack, the specific individual. And now, as soon as that lead was generated, we call them appointment setters, but the dispatcher would call and say, hey, we just got you. You wanted some more information. I have a couple questions for you to see if you qualify for our program. How many years experience do you have? Do you own your own truck? Do you drive over the road? Okay, you do. Great. You pre-qualify for an appointment with our recruiting team. Let me pull up their schedule. They use that Calendly app, which dynamically syncs with their calendar, and they book a time on that Calendly app with our recruiting team. And after that call gets booked, they get put into a separate email automation, which then sends emails based on the fact that they now have a phone call booked. So it's just like these little elements that people, whatever you have a product, you have a service. So whatever product or whatever service you have, you definitely should be collecting customers' information. You should be collecting name, phone number, email address. You definitely should have some type of email campaign to be able to generate leads and generate business with them. You definitely should be able to have, some type of digital advertising to be able to reach these people and getting, I'm not saying you have to totally get away from paper advertising, but man, there's a great way. What if you could find a way that within your business, you only were marketing to people that were pre-qualified to be potential purchasers of what it is? Like you don't want to, if your product's, a feminine product, you don't want to be sending a mailer to a house with a whole bunch of bachelors, right? Well, with online marketing, it allows you to be able to tailor your business to be able to hit those elements. So again, eliminate, streamline, automate, delegate, Upwork, Fiverr. These are all like third-party. These are all platforms where you could find third-party help. what you'll find, and then I want to see if there's any questions, but what you'll find on these platforms is that you have to be very pointed with what you want them to be able to do, because they're going to follow instructions. They don't know your business. So the nature of that is that you've eliminated the non-essentials, you've streamlined the task to be what the task is, and you can actually hire people on Upwork or Fiverr to be able to automate your business. Like, you don't have to know how to do it. You can hire people to be able to help you, to teach you how to be able to do those things. So eliminate, streamline, automate, delegate, do you ESAD. And then my last slide here is taking extreme ownership, both you personally as a CEO and founder of your company, and creating that culture within your team. I've had many of times where people would ask me questions and I know the answer, but I also know that the answer is Googleable. And I'll be like, good question, here, let me Google it. Now, more often than not, they ask me a question, cool, did you Google it? Cool, did you Google it? And if they say no, then I'm not even gonna bother with it, because I want people to be problem solvers. I don't want people to be doers. I want people to be problem solvers. And I want to create that culture of personal responsibility, because here's the problem with blame. And I said this to a group of young students the other week when I was on a similar call with them. There are there are demographic elements, there are race elements, there are gender elements that impact people's quality of life. And there's no argument about the reality of those elements. So no problems with that, right? I totally get that. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. Every single one of the cultures, every gender, every race, every religion has always had people that have thrived even amongst all the adversity. And when people live in a place of blame, you know, I'm going to do this right now because I feel like there's people that are watching this now and people that are watching this on the recording that you've blamed COVID. And I'm not denying the fact that COVID had presented an impact to your business and aren't real impacts. But when blame is placed, it removes power to change. Because what an individual is saying is that when they place blame on an outside element or an outside effect, again, risk management, right? Risk management is personal responsibility. When an owner, when an individual creates the culture for themselves and within their team to take personal responsibility to their business, I mean, especially something like COVID that affects everybody differently, but it affects everybody nonetheless. You know, champions aren't made in a ring, they're just recognized there. And when people place blame on outside circumstances, while they might be very real, and I'm not denying the reality of those outside influences, when you place blame on them, you now give the ability to succeed or the reason for failure, you now remove it out of your hands and you have no control over your life and over your destiny. But if you're willing to take personal responsibility, and if we're willing to take ownership of our situation, we can recognize the impacts of these events, but we now have the personal responsibility and we have the power, the personal power to be able to impact change within our organization, within our cities, within our regions, within our culture, within this generation. We now have the power to be able to make the difference within that framework. So I just want to challenge every one of you today to take extreme ownership of your business. Create a culture of extreme ownership with all of your employees, with all of your leaders. Create that make it happen attitude. And, you know, don't ask yourself, can this be done? Ask yourself, how can this be done? Don't ask yourself, can I automate my business? Ask yourself, how can I automate your business? Don't ask, can my business be simplified? Ask, how can I simplify my business? If you can start asking these questions to the management, marketing, sales, finance, production, finance, human resource, if you could start to go through every single one of those areas and present these questions about how can I ESAD my processes, how can I ESAD my business, your brain will find a way. and you will see a success, not only in this year 2020, but for many years and many decades to come. So again, thank you guys so much. Miss Sandy, really appreciate it. Miss Courtney, I mean, what an honor to be able to speak with you guys today and with your people. And if you have any other questions, I'd love to be able to entertain any direct questions, and or if you guys have any questions as a panelist, I'd love to be able to answer them for you.
Great job, Troy. Thank you so much. And I wish I could have you to speak to all of our students at UVA-Wise. You are so energetic. And
Name the day.
And I'll send you my 2 stepchildren too, because I tell them all the time, I'm like, I'm not answering that question for you. You think for yourself, come up with another solution, or give me 3 solutions and then we'll pick the best one. So
absolutely, that's great.
Okay, so I do have some questions for you that have come through. You seem to be very goal-oriented. Did you have a mindset of what your goals are or were to be considered a successful business?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? And I keep talking about my friend Tony Utegard, who owns those businesses. That's always, whenever he started working with me, that's exactly where he started. He said, Troy, what does your business look like as a success? Like, if you had to say your business is a thriving success, what does that look like as a thriving success? And then you present the question. It's always about time, right? So I love calendars because calendars create accountability for goals. Goals are just dreams with a deadline, as the saying goes, right? So yes, goals, absolutely. And this is a whole nother training we can do, but I can take every single one of your goals and put them down into 7 categories. They're either going to be spiritual, physical, financial, emotional, mental, relational, or recreational. Every single one of your goals are going to fit within inside of that framework. And figuring out which one of those goals are priority and which are going to move the needle for you in the most meaningful ways, in the most important ways, and then working backwards, like setting the timeline where you want to be by a certain day, and then saying, okay, if I want to be there in a year, where do I need to be in 6 months? Where do I need to be in 3 months, 2 months, 1 month? And if that's where I need to be in a month, then where do I need to be? What's my 4-week plan to be able to get there at that point? So I don't know if that answered that question directly or not. Did that answer the question?
Are you good, Mandy?
Yeah, that's good.
When starting your business, what are 2 to 3 things you did that you wish you had done differently?
I wish, oh man, that's such a hard question, because I'm actually a fan of the process of failure. And I think sometimes that, like, when you remove that process of failure, you remove all the learning that you had from it. I would say is that I wish I had tools then that I didn't have. So I really use this tool called Airtable, which is like Excel on steroids. And I wish I did a better job with just keeping and maintaining information, which I'm going to call data, because that's what it is. Data is actually the most expensive commodity in the world right now. It's actually more expensive than oil. That's what Facebook is. Facebook is a data aggregate. So real quick, so you guys understand how Facebook algorithms work, is let's say you buy something or you look at something, or even if you click on a Facebook ad, what Facebook does is Facebook looks at all the other pages that you like, and it now starts to categorize you as a human, and it starts to find all the other people who like the same crap you like on Facebook, and it starts to represent the same ads to the people that are just like you. That's how these algorithms work, right? But it's all based on capturing data. So they're doing it obviously in a more intense way, but there's data that you have about your business and about your customers, even basic things like ages and where you're shipping from and who they are. I wish that I would start to have, at the very least, started to collect that in an earlier way. Even if I didn't do anything with it, I wish I would have started to collect that information in the beginning, number 1. Number 2 is I would look at systematizing my business earlier. And this is why I'm as hesitant to say, I'm going to keep it short because I know our time is short and if there's other questions. But when you systematize it, there takes time to systematize a business. And the problem is when you're in the discovery phase of business, you can spend too long systematizing something that you're totally radically going to change in a very short period of time. So I would be hesitant to say from day 1, systematize your business. What I would say is evaluate your business monthly and quarterly and ask yourself, what processes do I have that are locked in processes right now? And I would systematize those businesses, because when you start to systematize those parts of your business, you can now start to delegate delegate those tasks to other people. You can now hire people, okay? And then the third part of that is I would ask yourself this question. Me and my friend Tony, we differ on this, okay? He says, how do I make more money? I say, how do I make more time? If I have more time, I can make more money. If I have more time, I can grow my organization. Money you can always make more of. You can't make more of time, right? I don't care if that means I have more time to spend with my 4 and my 2-year-old or whatever. That's valuable to me. So I would start to ask myself those questions is like, how do I create more time? I worked at California Pizza Kitchen as a part-time pizza server when I was building my business because I wanted to be able to have a model where I could employ other people, and I paid myself as an employee with my company. And only when I could pay myself as an employee and as an owner and be profitable in both parts that's when I started to hire people as the employee, and I knew what my quality of life was like at that point. So that's my short answer.
Okay, Sandy, we have 1 minute. Do you want me to ask one more question, or do you want to?
Ask away.
Okay. What tips?
I'm good. Like, I've got time for you. So I know everyone's time is precious, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
What tips do you have for managing a remote team and mitigate risks that can cause? She said she's thinking about cybersecurity.
Yeah, that's a great question. My first response is, because everybody's business is so different, my first response is going to be find out what other people in your industry are currently doing right now. Like, cybersecurity is like over my head. So I'm going to tell you, hire somebody that can, or contract somebody that can, and just start doing the research as far as like cybersecurity is concerned. Obviously have like NDAs in place, non-disclosures agreements, have, liability forms in place for that type of stuff. I can't really talk about cybersecurity on a culture level. I would say find a way to have fun culture. We've been doing weekly phone calls since before the pandemic. I do incentives with my guys. I have lunch incentives where we'll buy lunch for everybody if certain goals are hit. There's other benchmark incentives. I give out Uber Eats gift cards on our weekly conference calls, sometimes for stupid little things like participating or giving the right answer or, whatever. Hey, your hair looks awesome today. I'm going to send you an Uber Eats gift card, Courtney. And it's a fun way to be able to, and I'm going to do that. You're going to get a $25 Uber Eats gift card from me, Miss Courtney, Lee, Connor, Stringer, right? It's just fun. Like, it's just a fun way, and it just feels good. And everyone's like, that's fun. Everyone's smiling that I can see her. It's just little things like that. I can speak more to the culture than I can to cybersecurity. But
glad Natalie is not visible, or not Natalie, Nicole. Her hair looked great today on our other call. Okay, our next question is, how much time
is that Nicole Hair, by the way? Is that her name, the Nicole Hair, that her hair looked great? How funny. Okay.
How much time do you dedicate to training your employees and drivers?
0. Boom! I automated it. So I got a platform called Thinkific. Okay, Thinkific is like a prosumer tool that allows you to be able to create accredited tests, quizzes, and videos. So I say that, right? But yeah, I made a whole online prep platform. I really looked at all the elements and I identified major problems within our business. I hired a videographer. I made videos. I split them up into bite-sized little pieces. I put little question quizzes for each one of the videos, and I required 100% accuracy on my quizzes to be able to make sure that they had the information. Training people should take very little of your time. Now, there's still a personal element, and we have a team now that does that, obviously, but it's not automate doesn't mean remove humans. It just means to be able to remove the necessity of humans at every single step of the way. So it just allows now where I can have one trainer instead of him only being or her only being able to train one person. They can now train 4 people because the kindergarten ABCs of the business are covered within our elements. So I spend very little time now. But the employee or the agent, they spend a lot of time training, but we've just automated that process for us and we've guided them along that process. And then we are there to assist them. And the quizzes are less about like, great, you got 100. And it's more like, hey, we're asking you these questions because you need to know the answers to this. And we're just reinforcing the important information of it. So yeah, automate it. Thinkific is a great platform. Teachable is another one. Automate, pick one piece of your business that you can do and figure out a way to eliminate, streamline, automate, and delegate that task.
Okay, and as your firm grows, what is the hardest to control? People, cash flow, technology?
Yeah, great. All the above, for sure. So like as a founder and a CEO, I constantly feel like I'm spinning plates. Other people talk about it as like being a maestro. I don't think it's that beautiful personally, at least not the stage that I'm at. I'm definitely more of a plate spinner. And it really just depends like what area needs the needle to be moved the most. And we do different things at different seasons and different times. And like my strategy is like focusing on a piece that I know is like, I'm always about making more money. Like I'm about making more time and making more money. So I'm like right now we're automating a certain part of our training. And I know once we automate that, there's the next part I'm going to automate is our recruiting training. And I'm going to automate that so I can scale onboards with that. But all the same while, like, yes, I'm working on our whole cash flow. Like our business is very cash heavy, even though we have a, whatever, $200,000 a week in volume, we spend a massive amount of it and I have to keep on top. So we have tools in place that we use. Airtable, again, is another one, is a great tool. I have Excel spreadsheets that I use, and we're very, very, very meticulous about all of that type of tech. Same thing. I mean, like I'm constantly learning, asking questions. What do you use? That's how I found out about Airtable. So it's like, it's all the above. It just depends what's my biggest, not what's my biggest pain point. Sometimes I ask what's my biggest pain point, but I also say what's the biggest pain point of my team? Because if I have a team member that's experiencing a problem and many people are responding, I can make many people feel happy, and I'm willing to put my needs to the side if it's not critical to be able to make a whole bunch of other people happy.
I have a question, Troy. The drink that you're having, is it full of caffeine? Because I think it's affecting you differently. You have no excitement in your voice or anything.
No, it's actually only half drank right now, so it does have a little caffeine in it. Yes.
Okay, I have a question for you, Troy.
Yep, good.
This is your quiz. Do you know where Napoleon Hill is from?
No, I don't. Is he from St. Paul?
Pound, Virginia, which is right near UVA Live. So when
That's awesome.
Next time you go to St. Paul, you'll have to do some research and see where he was from. It's probably about 25 minutes from there.
Pound. I think one of the guys I work with is from Pound. He lives in Pound. So
one of the ones that's in St. Paul?
Yep.
I bet he doesn't
John.
know who Napoleon Hill is, but I was a Napoleon Hill scholar
sure.
when I was in college there, so you'll have to look at the information.
And Troy, tonight I start a business challenge in one of our communities. It's over a 6 weeks period. And I really think that this video, I'm going to make it a mandatory watch, not only about, your business, but how you as a business owner, why you're using technology to help you, because that's saving money. It's keeping you more efficient, and you're not having to buy additional people for management. You have everything right at your fingertips. So I plan on definitely doing that today.
And one of the most
whatever I can do to help you guys moving forward, for sure. Sorry, Ms. Courtney, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. When you said that you like failure, it's not something you enjoy, but it's okay to fail. That's one of our things. I guess all of our mindset is you don't want to fail, but that's one of the things with UVA Wise, and I'm so thankful for Shannon. She's always told us, she was like, I'm okay if you fail, or if you make mistakes, just do it cheaply. She's like, don't have it when you fail. So be strategic about your failures. If it's something you think is going to build relationships or make a process more efficient, try it, as long as it's not going to be a huge loss, money loss.
That's great. Totally. Yeah.
Well, Troy, I want to first say thank you for your time. This has been extremely valuable to me. And I'm sure my SBD, my Small Business Development Center partners that are on the line, because they're working a lot hand in hand with businesses, both startup and existing. And especially, I love the points that you made about, this COVID, and why we're doing this series about developing a resiliency plan is because you really had your plan in place so that you weren't impacted like so many other businesses that were unprepared. That were even to want to take advantage to some of the grant programs that the government is putting out. They didn't even have their taxes completed and so forth. So that's key. And we didn't, for those that are viewing, we did not pay him to hit every point on our resiliency program. You have 2 more sessions for that. But again, I appreciate it. And we will be providing Troy's content, the slides, but also I will upload the video, and you can have that as a resource for you to reflect back on, but also, as I said in the very beginning, if you found value in this, share this with other businesses and colleagues and folks that you think could benefit for, because that's why we're doing this. So we'll be getting those out. Just a little quick note, next week, next Thursday, we'll focus on developing a crisis communication plan, and Kathy Steele with our University of Virginia's College at Wise will be leading that session, and I hope you could join us. It's been a fun 13 weeks. We just got a few more sessions, but again, Troy, I really appreciate it. All of my partners online, I personally appreciate your collaboration and support on this program. So unless any of the partners have a question or comment, anybody? I guess we will adjourn. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.